Picture this scenario. You are sitting in a boardroom. The air conditioning is humming, the coffee is lukewarm, and the stakes are incredibly high. You have spent weeks analyzing the Q4 data. You know, analytically, that the proposed strategy is going to fail. You have the solution. It is complex, brilliant, and necessary. But when you open your mouth to speak, you don't sound like the expert you are. You sound hesitant. You sound, well, junior. You say, I think maybe we should try this, instead of, the data suggests a pivot. And just like that, the moment is gone. Your idea is dismissed, not because it was bad, but because the packaging was wrong.
It is a painful reality for so many professionals. We spend years mastering our technical skills, coding, accounting, engineering, but we often neglect the instrument we use to deliver that expertise: language. There is a profound psychological gap between having a good idea and sounding like you have authority over that idea. Today, we are not just talking about vocabulary. We are deconstructing the linguistics of leadership.
Welcome back to The Deep Dive. I'm Chloe, and today I'm joined by our resident communication analyst, Alex. We are tackling a listener request that really struck a nerve: the feeling of sounding like a child asking for a cookie in high-stakes business meetings. We are going to hand over the keys to the executive office, linguistically speaking.
It is a pleasure to be here, Chloe. And that listener's description, a child asking for a cookie, is visceral, but accurate. Sociolinguists often refer to this as the credibility gap. You see, in the corporate world, listeners, specifically senior leadership, are constantly scanning for signals of competence. When you use low-agency language, you trigger a subconscious bias. They might like you, but they won't trust you with the steering wheel.
So let's audit that low-agency language. The most common offender is the phrase, I think. It seems harmless. It is honest. Why is it a problem in a boardroom context?
The phrase, I think, belongs to the realm of personal subjectivity. It suggests uncertainty or a guess. If I say, I think it might rain, I am admitting I haven't checked the weather report. In a strategic meeting, you want to signal that your conclusion is the result of analysis, not intuition. We want to move from subjective to objective framing.
Give us the upgrade. If we strip I think from our vocabulary, what replaces it?
You have two strong options depending on the context. If you want to emphasize your unique vantage point, you use from my perspective or in my view. These phrases subtly remind the room that you have a specific professional angle. But if you want to sound like a strategist who has weighed the evidence, my preferred phrase is, my take on this is...
My take on this is, it sounds heavier. It implies you have processed the information.
Correct. It signals synthesis. For example, instead of saying, I think we should do the mobile version first, you say, my take on this is that we should prioritize the mobile launch before the desktop version. The second sentence sounds like a conclusion derived from data. It commands more space in the room.
That brings us to the most terrifying part of a fast-paced meeting, the interruption. There is a lot of cultural baggage here. In many cultures, interrupting is seen as deeply rude. But in American or British corporate culture, the silence is rarely given. If you wait for a pause, you might wait forever.
This is where we get into the power dynamics of conversation analysis. Studies, such as those by Zimmerman and West going back to 1975, have shown significant gender disparities in interruptions, with men interrupting women far more frequently. However, more recent research, published in journals like Academy Publication, distinguishes between power-oriented interruptions, which are dominant and intrusive, and rapport-oriented interruptions, which are cooperative.
So you can interrupt in a way that actually builds connection, rather than destroying it.
Precisely. You need a linguistic tool I call the polite wedge. You are not bulldozing, you are sliding into the conversation. The gold standard phrase here is, could I just jump in here for a second?
Jump in. It is so kinetic. It implies energy, not aggression.
It suggests you are joining the team effort, not stopping the flow. Another excellent variation is, if I could just add something to that. This is a rapport-oriented interruption. You are explicitly validating the previous speaker by saying you are adding to their point, even if you are about to pivot the conversation entirely.
And the defensive side, when you are the one being interrupted, that feels like a moment where people crumble. They either get angry or they just stop talking.
If I could just finish my point, you say it with a smile, but you do not stop speaking.
It signals a professional backbone.
Let's move to diplomacy. This is the holy grail of business English because you often have to tell a colleague or a boss that their idea is terrible. Saying that won't work is a career-limiting move. It burns bridges.
Direct negation triggers defensiveness. The amygdala lights up and the other person goes into fight or flight mode. You need to bypass that reaction using the cushioning technique. You wrap the critique in soft, modal language. The phrase I always recommend is, I see where you're coming from, but I have some concerns regarding...
Concerns regarding. It sounds so detached and objective. You aren't saying, I hate this. You are saying, there are external concerns.
It depersonalizes the conflict. You are attacking the problem, not the person. Another powerful tool here is the use of modal verbs, words like could, might, would. Instead of saying, we can't do that because of the budget, you say, I'm not entirely sure that's the best approach given our current budget. You soften the no into uncertainty, which invites the other person to solve the problem with you.
I want to touch on the specific vocabulary of action. At the end of a meeting, when tasks are being assigned, there is a tendency to say, I will do this. It is functional, but it is not leadership.
No, I will do this sounds like obedience. It sounds like you are checking a box. To sound like an owner of the project, you swap that for, I'll take the lead on that.
I'll take the lead. It implies responsibility and oversight, not just execution.
It changes your role in the listener's mind from a worker bee to a project manager. And this brings us to one of the most debated phrases in corporate history, circle back.
Oh, the infamous circle back. I feel like this phrase gets so much hate on social media. People call it empty jargon. But you argue it actually serves a vital function?
It is hated, yes. A recent survey by the Ladders listed it as one of the most annoying office phrases, but functionally, it is indispensable. Historically, the term likely has maritime or military origins, scouts circling back to the main troop. In business, it is a delay tactic that sounds like a plan. If you say, I don't know, let me check, you sound unprepared. If you say, let me look into that and circle back to you by Friday, you sound organized. It buys you time to gather intelligence without admitting ignorance.
So it is a shield. It protects your confidence while giving you space to do the work. What about when you are completely lost? The meeting is moving at 100 miles per hour, acronyms are flying, and you genuinely do not understand what is being asked. You can't just say, I don't get it.
Never say, I don't understand without a qualifier. It puts the deficit on you. Instead, you put the burden of clarity on the speaker. You ask, could you elaborate on that a bit more? Or, just so I'm clear, are you saying that? This frames the clarification as you being rigorous and detailed rather than confused. It is a subtle status shift.
We have covered vocabulary, but we have to talk about the music of speech, tone. The listener specifically mentioned sounding like a child. Often that comes down to uptalking.
Uptalk, or high-rising terminal, is when your pitch rises at the end of a declarative sentence. It makes a statement sound like a question. If I say, we should increase the budget, I am asking for permission. If I say, we should increase the budget, with a downward inflection, I am stating a fact. Leadership almost always speaks with a downward inflection. It signals that the speaker is finished and certain.
Let's synthesize this. I want to run that role play scenario our listeners suggested, but I want to pause and dissect it as we go. I will play the enthusiastic but perhaps misguided boss. You play the employee who needs to shut me down without getting fired.
I am ready. Let's see if we can apply the cushioning and the strategic take in real time.
Okay, here's the pitch. Leo, listen, I had a revelation over the weekend. I think we should spend the entire marketing budget on TikTok influencers. It's what everyone is doing right now. It is viral. What do you think?
All right, pause. So the trap here is to say that is a huge risk, or our customers aren't on TikTok. That is too direct. I need to validate you first, then pivot.
Right, if you shut me down instantly, I'm going to defend my idea harder.
Exactly. So here's the executive response. I see where you're coming from, Emma, and TikTok is definitely a major trend right now. However, my take on this is that our target audience is actually more active on LinkedIn. I have some concerns regarding the ROI of TikTok for this specific B2B product. Could we perhaps look into a split budget approach instead?
That was masterful. Let's break down why that worked. You started with validation. I see where you're coming from. You made me feel heard.
Then I used the authority phrase, my take on this is this, to introduce the counter-argument.
I didn't say I think LinkedIn is better. I presented it as an analysis of the target audience.
And then you hit me with the concerns regarding, you made the return on investment the bad guy, not me.
And finally, I used a modal verb sandwich. Could we perhaps, to offer a compromise? It is a solution-oriented ending. You walk away feeling like we collaborated, even though I effectively just killed your original idea.
One final scenario before we wrap up, burnout, overwhelm. This is a huge issue right now. A boss dumps a project on your desk and you literally cannot do it. Saying, "I'm too busy" sounds like a complaint. How does a leader say no?
You frame it as a resource allocation issue, not a personal capacity issue. The idiom, "my plate is currently quite full," is universally understood in English-speaking offices. It implies you are already working at maximum efficiency. But you must follow it with a trade-off. You say, "I'd love to help with that, but I need to prioritize Project X right now. Could we push this deadline back to Tuesday?"
That word prioritize is doing a lot of heavy lifting there.
It is. It tells the boss, I am protecting the company's most important assets by not diluting my focus. You are managing the company's time, not just your own.
We have covered a lot of ground, from the polite wedge of interruption to the circle back delay tactic. Alex, if our listeners take away just one thing from this deep dive, what should it be?
It is the realization that business English is not about big words. It's about functional phrases that signal control. You don't need a dictionary. You need a strategy. Pick 3 phrases we discussed today. Maybe "from my perspective," "I'll take the lead," and "concerns regarding." Write them on a Post-it note. Use them in your next meeting. You will feel the shift in how people look at you.
The language you use creates the reality of your leadership. It is a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you speak like an executive, you eventually become one.
And remember, concluding a meeting is just as important as starting one. Don't just say bye. Signal the future. Use "let's wrap things up here" and "what are the next steps?" It shows you are focused on momentum.
Momentum is everything. Thanks for dissecting the code of the C-suite today.
My pleasure. Go out there and sound like the boss you are.
And to our listeners, let us know what your most stressful business situation is. We want to hear your stories. Until next time, keep refining that signal.